When God created the universe, he created the Earth. And when God created the Earth, he created Eastern Europe. Because apparently he had nowhere else to store all that surplus booze lying around the gates of heaven. And when God created Eastern Europe, he created the Slavs. And if we're all up to date on our biblical canon, we all know how this ends. Just as Adam and Eve took a bite of the forbidden fruit, Dmitri and Sasha took a swig of the forbidden Smirnoff. And thus they were banished further east. The result was the modern Russian. Life in Russia is a constant struggle for survival. Not only do you have to cater to your basic needs of cheap vodka and bootleg cigarettes, amidst a perpetual economic depression, you also have to worry about other Russians. Gopniks, babushkas, Boris. If you have something they want, they will take it, down to the clothes off your own back. Very few people have entered this tainted land and returned the same, let alone returned at all. Unlike a certain New Zealand man who not only entered and studied this uninhabitable wasteland, but modified a certain Czech milsim game to accurately reflect his experiences, sparing the rest of us from ever having to dare set foot anywhere near those dreaded babushkas. The result? Dayz. Just kidding, this video is about Raid Shadow Legends. That's right, I got you good! But you already know about Raid Shadow Legends. It's the turn-based fantasy RPG cultural phenomenon that has swept the mobile gaming market for half a decade now. Since then boasting 80 million downloads, all those people already know how good it is, so what's your excuse? It doesn't cost you anything, it's completely free. You can just jump in and bang, bang!
Ooh, we got killed.
I was honestly really impressed with Raid when I first installed it. It's actually quite gorgeous with a bombastic, whimsical art style. Needless to say, I was immediately digging it as soon as I booted it up. My favorite champion at the moment is Gallic. He's big, he's mean, he's green, he's got two big axes, smashy smashy, and can roast his victims to a crisp. And alongside him, there's over 650 other champions for you to collect as you do battle through dangerous dungeons in PvE, or test your mettle against the rest of the world in the PvP arena. And even more to come with the recently added Sylvan Watchers faction, spearheaded by the mysterious forest elves of Mistwood. Lord, I wouldn't want to cross that guy. And the content just keeps coming, because this month's Prime Gaming Drop features Genbo the Dishonored, an epic tier Shadowkin champion available until the 2nd of March. And Rondaruzi, she's in the game too. Log in for 7 consecutive days before the 28th of February to unlock her. The more time you waste not playing Raid Shadow Legends, the sooner you'll miss out on this unmissable opportunity. But don't take my word for it, it's completely 100% free. Download it using the link in the description and see for yourself, claiming a whole stockpile of awesome goodies in the process. Trust me, you may have found your new addiction. Raid Shadow Legends. Oh, yeah, so anyway, back to Dayz. Dayz is a masterpiece, an action-packed thrill ride, a rollercoaster of emotions, an unscrupulous, intimate, and revealing gaze into the darkest depths of the human psyche, a soul-touching journey the likes of which not even Shakespeare could hope to craft. Dayz is an interesting game to talk about in that you will never get the same experience as advertised by what you see from fellow YouTubers and even the game's own advertising. And then you get to the live action trailers, which are completely batshit. I also hope I'm not the only one who thinks this guy looks like J Station. Infamously, Dayz is what the kids back in the day called a walking simulator, or as I like to call it, a bold and bankrupt simulator, because your entire playtime will be spent wandering from one backwater bog in the Russian Federation to another backwater bog in the Russian Federation on the other side of the fucking continent, occasionally getting into polite disagreements with some of the native Russians on the way. Jesus Christ, my aim fucking sucks, oh my god. The premise is simple. You wake up, having washed ashore of a foreign land with nothing but a pear and a vibrating dildo in your pocket, and then it hits you. The road signs, written in a language that could only have been concocted by drunk people. Crumbling brutalist architecture. The same 5 house designs interspersing the cold, cloudy, and damp countryside for miles around. To your shock and horror, you've waken up in Russia. And the only way to survive the Russian countryside is to live like a Russian. Shadowboxing gopniks until they die of alcohol poisoning, going through their pockets and raiding everyone's homes in a drunken stupor, trying your damnedest not to alert any watchful babushkas along the way. In some very fascinating ways, not to mention the setting, Dayz feels somewhat similar to a Stalker game. You start out as a nobody with nothing to your name and no gear. Who you are and why you're there is irrelevant. All that matters is delving deeper into the zone, collecting more valuable artifacts and battling increasingly dangerous foes and mutant abominations on the way.
What is he doing? Oh my god, he's sniffing my feet!
Not to mention the topography is essentially identical, only going to show that if you were to put a picture of a nuclear reactor meltdown next to a picture of your average Slavic suburb, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But the biggest difference between Stalker and Dayz, however, is that Dayz has no content. It has game mechanics, a lot of them, but that only serves as a base for what feels like a largely empty experience. Like bread with no butter. Take the original mod for example. Utilizing what content there was from ARMA 2, the mod had bicycles, cars, jeeps, lorries, fucking tanks, helicopters, planes, a varied weapon sandbox, public chat, fucking parachutes. Dayz, the game, has a car, if you're somehow lucky enough to find it, and lucky enough to just so happen to be carrying the 15 prerequisite parts you need to get it to fucking work properly. This is a problem Dayz is notorious for, especially regarding its infamous development cycle. Or lack thereof. You can even see them scraping the metaphorical barrel in the most recent updates, with all they can actually think of adding is clown face paint and a single fucking Humvee. Now I know what you might be thinking.
But Yoshi, there are monolithic amounts of content available on the Steam Workshop and within community servers. Fan-made maps and weapon packs and rebuffed base building, so much so that I dare say it brings a standalone game up to spec with the most former glory. Yes.
For once, you make a very salient point, Mr. Strawman audience member. However, you've only just highlighted how the game suffers very chronically from a bad case of Bethesda disorder. Make a game, highlight some interesting base mechanics and a solid formula, don't develop it whatsoever, don't fix any of the bugs, and leave the modders to fix your promising but bland experience. Besides, downloading 2 terabytes of mods just to access a single server that may or may not spawn you with a gun, 15 kilos of food, and have the spawn rates and values of every item in the game completely out of whack, be it too much or nothing at all, then hopping to yet another custom server to rinse and repeat the same process is not my idea of a good time. So why is it then that I have invested near to 300 hours into this fucking game? Well, of course, it's the interactions you have with fellow players. Oh, never mind you. As soon as things get interesting, motherfuckers just... arsehole. This game is a first for me, since it is the first multiplayer game I've reviewed on this channel, and if it wasn't for this factor, this game would not be worth considering whatsoever. Everywhere you look, everywhere you go, there is no guarantee that you will ever come across any other living being. However, that doesn't mean you won't. For all you know, you could be casually playing with the Gopniks in generic village number 43, and without your knowledge, there may be a bloodthirsty predator lurking beyond the tree lines. Unfortunately, most player interactions you have are terribly lackluster. If you're lucky enough for the guy you've met to have not shot you, chances are you will meet the most timid, servile, and spatially unaware creatures on the planet. We call them Lithuanians. The other half of the time, encounters you do have with players will be... awkward.
What is that you're pointing at me? Jesus Christ! He's a fucking psycho! I offered you friendship and you put a gun to my face! What is wrong with you?
But one thing you have to remember when encountering new spawns, what they lack in intelligence, they make up for in balls. Because they've gotten so used to having their brains plastered all over the walls with their minimal amounts of gear, they've taught themselves to go balls to the wall with the most half-cocked and insane plays possible. You suck! You fucking suck! Oh my god! What were you thinking, you absolute fuck nugget? Of all the footage I've recorded for this game, there's only ever been one incident where I encountered a friendly player. We huddled by the fire and shared some food, and I followed him to the center of town, where I met the rest of his friends. They had no idea how to cook, yet had all the prerequisite parts to do so. So I taught them how to barbecue. It's not perfect, but it can, like, do 2 things at a time, so that might be just what we need. Do you want me to cut up the cock?
Yeah, please, I ain't got enough to
Yeah, that's alright. Alright, get out your lighter. Let's get cooking. There you go, good lad. Let's have a fucking barbecue, boys.
Oh, let's get the heat up, boys.
Unfortunately, one of the neighbors soon arrived to deliver a noise complaint.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
What?
Fuck! Get away from the windows!
Ultimately, one of the game's greatest strengths is also its greatest flaw. How the game is balanced and structured, ever coming across someone trustworthy, let alone friendly, is ridiculously unlikely.
You there! Stop!
Hey, whoa, easy there, buddy. Easy, Jesus Christ.
A fine pair of boots.
Oh, fuck. Hang on, wrong door.
Just warming up. You pathetic worm.
If you've come to rescue... Okay. You're just gonna be an asshole then.
The game's combat cycle rewards random wanton destruction and violence and sabotages attempts at teamwork or community. I honestly don't know if this is social commentary or not. And at this point, I'm even thankful for coming across a guy who wants to hold me up and mug me, as opposed to just straight up kill me.
Turn around.
Yep.
Looking in a wall. Count to 5 minutes, and you can leave it from container.
Alright. Spasiba. At the end of the day, you're forced to play along, playing the crazy loner survivalist, shooting anything on sight with the only thing to keep you company being your custom-ordered darky Marka. But enough about this Discovery Channel tier attempt at amateur anthropology. How's the gameplay, you may be wondering? Well, as a matter of fact, it is kind of, sort of, alright, okay-ish, decent, sort of-ish, kind of.
It's very hard to explain!
Actually, it isn't. The gameplay isn't terrible, but neither is it the ball-busting, groundbreaking masterpiece you've been waiting for all your life either. Welcome to Chernarus. 200 square miles of absolute fuck all. Your only objective is survival. You will need to scavenge, steal, and kill to survive. For some reason, abandoned rowboats off the coast always have the best loot. As is typical for a zombie survival game, scavenging and wandering from one wasteland to another will take up the vast majority of your playtime. Food is invaluable. Water, however, is even more invaluable. After all, if it's not starvation that kills you, it's thirst. Or cholera, because that's what you get for downing some random water bottle you found out in the fucking wilderness. Unsurprisingly, a lot of your survival in this game will boil down to your ability to follow facts and logic. Instead of drinking straight from a river where the locals have most likely shit in, like a sociopath, you might be tempted to boil it or temper it with chlorine tablets before consumption. Or, I guess you could drink straight from the well, which, after an indeterminate amount of time after the virus hit, still has perfectly sanitized drinking water, of which there is a near infinite surplus. Do not question it. World building and lore consistency is for pussies. Food. Food is something everyone loves. It is something everyone wants. If tinned beans and peaches aren't cutting it for you, you may be desperate enough to attempt a more carnal form of sustenance. Fun fact, did you know that the human body contains more than 125,000 calories? Well, as luck would have it, so did I. Just so you know, before dining on your neighbor, I would recommend downing a full bottle of vitamin pills, because for some reason, gnawing on another man's leg is almost guaranteed to contract you brain-prion disease. Don't ask me why. And do not ask me why human flesh tastes like pork. My lawyer tells me that I do not know and should refuse to comment further. But perhaps when it comes to cooking, you actually have some semblance of standards. And human flesh is well below your palate. Not to worry, because humans aren't the only prey you can hunt in this game. Yes, as a matter of fact, there is hunting in this game. Hunting deer is, as a matter of fact, a source of great pride for me. Slithering through the grass like a snake, shotgun in hand, my targets cluelessly approaching me, unaware that they could count down the remaining moments in seconds. A single deer is not just a single deer. A single deer is a week's worth of food. It's a roof over your head. It's an ingredient for crafting weapons. For all everyone's talk of returning to Monkey, I can safely launch Dayz and return to my primal roots from behind the safety of my own computer monitor. Also, even funner, fun fact, you can pick up a slaughtered chicken and beat people to death with it. It is highly impractical and is likely to get you killed. However, this small feature makes Dayz one of the few games where I can say, without a shred of irony, that you can beat zombies to death with your cock. I mean, to be honest, at this rate, anything beats a fishing minigame.
Who the fuck keeps adding fishing to these fucking games?
It's also one of the few games I can think of where you can actually seriously cook grenades. Pile them into a pot, let it simmer for 10 minutes, then up the temperature for an explosive banquet.
Jesus fuck, that actually worked. And of course the pan is completely unscathed. 10 out of fucking 10 game.
Drip. Drip in Russia is a symbol of status. The shiftier the apparel, the stronger the drip. Loading into the game, you spawn with nothing but a pair of shorts and a torn old shirt, signifying you as prey to the mafia men dripped in tracksuits.
Ah, what the fuck, you son of a bitch!
As such, you will have to steal and scavenge what you can to protect yourself from the elements and from bloodthirsty predators. Chances are you will look like a fucking idiot, but you'll be an alive fucking idiot. If you're smart and or lucky enough to make it to a military base, you'll be able to ditch the clown suit and kit yourself out in state-of-the-art, high-tech camo suits, because anything beats wrapping yourself in strips of torn trouser leggings. Oh yeah, military bases. They're a real good time. Taking the zombies out of the equation, Dayz is actually very comfy. Strolling out into the lush, deciduous Russian countryside, going to sleep by the fireplace and in the middle of a storm, listening to the sibilant sizzling of a fresh chicken goujon over the fireplace, all of which are incredibly refreshing and relaxing on a primal level, and thus I am forced to relive my anarcho-primitivist fantasies vicariously through this game. This is of course when you're not shooting at strangers in the street. Fucking hell. Here we go, it's on.
Fucking hell. My fucking heart, Jesus!
Assuming you can even get hold of a gun, and that being said, there's no guarantee you'll ever get to fucking use it because of how ridiculously scarce ammo is. And even then, the only ammo you're even going to find are rubber shotgun shells, which have the stopping power of a projectile condom. And now for a segment dedicated to Top Gear. Finding a car that actually works in Dayz is a feeling like none other. Finally, I can relive my Jeremy Clarkson fantasies to their fullest potential. GTA 5, this is not, however. Every vehicle in this game drives like a brick slathered in butter, and unless you take to changing the gears properly, your car will make a noise which I believe would be akin to Shane Dawson's cat. Let's talk base building. Let's talk about how fucking convoluted it is. Dayz's base building system is so brain-meltingly abysmal that it would make Project Zomboid's carpenter community all collectively die of a fucking heart attack. No, you can't board windows, you can't blockade doors, you don't need to, especially not if you bugger off into the wilderness and construct a tent made of twigs and duct tape. So that's half the reason of base building gone in a heartbeat. If you really wanted to defend yourself from harassment from other players, your best bet would be to slink off into the middle of the forest, again, chop down all the trees in your local vicinity and use the twigs you obtained from the wood to create a twig shelter, a camouflage shelter with more than adequate storage space. Otherwise, you'll be forced to attempt to build a wooden fence and door, in which case you'll need wood, a hammer, nails, a spade, hatchet, metal wire, some gloves, a fucking instruction manual, a crate of beer, and the National Suicide Prevention Helpline. Maybe modders have changed the base building for better, but regardless, the lack of viable base building and fortification tools in Dayz limits the player to the nomadic psycho playstyle, because you can't build a base, and because literally every other fucker you meet wants to slice a patch of your pubic hair off and use it as dental floss, as is the culture that has festered in mainstream Dayz servers over years and years of the game's stagnant development. Dayz as a game is all potential with nothing to back it up, with the developers putting in the bare minimum effort to keep the game going for maximum results, possibly with a skeleton crew of a dev team left behind. Through its base game mechanics, atmosphere, and environmental design, and how brutal the game is towards the player, Dayz reminds me of some ways of Far Cry 2. Your guns and gear degrade over time with use and will frequently jam if left without care. You can catch disease for which you will need specific antibiotics and medications for. You can find equipment to camouflage you in the forest. You can upgrade your weapons and ballistic vests with attachments and scout out your marks before infiltrating and assaulting them. The hardcore survivalist aspect of this game makes me think that this game is one single player campaign away from becoming the next Far Cry 2, where your playstyle is nearly entirely based around whatever you can scavenge or craft in the wild without relying on any gimmicky pseudo-RPG bollocks. Ultimately, that's all I can muster to say about Dayz. It's a game that stuck with me for a very long time, as well as plenty of other people, and make no mistake, I do enjoy the shit out of it. But would I recommend it to others given the state it's in? No. Especially not for the price of admission. Especially if you throw in Livonia to the mix, which is essentially your typical DayZ experience, except it's constantly pissing down with rain. But before I slink off into the darkness once more, I have a Patreon, I have a Twitter, I have a Discord. Oh, and I may or may not be streaming at 7 PM Saturdays and Sundays again. I haven't been able to recently given how insanely busy I've been this past month, but anyway, I'm tired and want to go to sleep. Subscribe and come back in a month or two when I have actually something interesting to talk about.